Welcome to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. I am your co-host, Tosha with a P, Davis. That's my new tagline, I guess, Tosha with a P.
Why don't you just take the P out?
Because my daddy
Oh,
named
sorry,
me.
excuse me. I don't want to. Sorry,
That's
I didn't want to get emotional.
That's
now.
right. My daddy named me Tosha with a P, and play with that.
Could he spell? I mean, no, I'm
Daddy, you can call in.
No.
When you meet Rahim, I'm gonna let y'all handle that.
No, I'm not. I'm not looking for no confrontation.
So that gentleman that you hear
Tony
talking,
just finished saying, I keep talking. I'll talk my way out of it.
And
then I'm running.
Yeah, and my dad retired from the Internal Revenue Service as the director.
So he got connections. I definitely. I take it back, sir.
So
Mr. Davis.
That gentleman that you hear speaking is none other than our host, Rahim Islam. He is here, Plane, Trains, and Automobiles this week again. He has been doing it, getting it done. And he's been back and forth. He brought that cold East Coast weather back with him this time.
Did I?
Yes. It snowed this morning.
It's ridiculous. It really
the
is.
Easter Bunny is not. I don't even believe in the Easter Bunny, okay?
It really is ridiculous.
I don't even buy into that nonsense, but the Easter Bunny cannot even survive in this foolishness. And we are just.
What about the
who?
What is see if they see a shadow?
The groundhog is the groundhog. If he got any sense, he underground.
But does it? They go. Is it?
I said Potawatomi. It ain't Potawatomi. It's what's his name? What's his name? Somebody. We don't know. Anyway, we don't believe in none of that foolishness. Anyway, it is what it is. It's cold. It's still wintertime, even though it's officially spring.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
And we wearing coats and hats.
I got gloves.
Raheem got gloves and a scarf.
Yeah, they look at me like something's wrong with that man.
They like, he ain't from Wisconsin.
I got my gloves on. I had it on when it was 50 degrees.
We know. He was like, Tosha, where's your coat? Where's your coat? I'm like, man, this is hot. But it is not even 50 degrees. So we are prayerful that spring will at least drop by and then summer will come. We are so excited. Of course, our sidekick, main man who's always here with us, Tony Cash, is in the house. We're actually going to let Tony get on the mic a little bit today because he's got an event coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I'm planning on being there tomorrow night.
I heard you're going to be like one of the main attractions there.
I don't know about that.
Everybody come to here.
I definitely will be. I definitely will be there.
Yeah. MKE Unplugged. So we're gonna let Tony come. He's usually seen and not heard. We're gonna actually let him come tell us a little bit about that.
Sure.
A little bit later in the show. And I am so excited to have our special guest with us today. He's not a stranger to this radio station, but he has never been on our show before. Dr. Ramell Smith. And he is Milwaukee's homegrown talent. He stayed here. I'm not going to cry.
Don't cry.
I'm not going to cry. Have you ever seen me cry?
Yeah, you cry all the time.
Really? I do not.
But I don't see tears, but you be crying.
That's whining. That ain't crying. That's whining. Anyway, Ramell.
No, without seeing you cry, why would you ask me that?
I mean, like, get emotional. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I get Ramell is a good friend.
He's gonna make you cry?
Yeah, he's changed. He's impacted my life like that.
Oh, okay.
So,
right. Well, I'm not gonna make light of that then.
Introduced to him by my mentor, who was his mentor, I believe, as well. And he has impacted my life significantly. I think he'll end up probably being a good friend of yours also, Rahim.
And that mentor who's that mentor?
That mentor is Dr. Juliet Martin Thomas, who you were actually supposed to meet with today.
Okay.
So wonderful, wonderful person in the community. She's been working here in the community almost 40, 50 years and has impacted a lot of lives.
That's great.
Living legend.
Yeah,
That's
living
great.
legend.
Well, so, you know, what impressed me when you said, she got hours,
Right.
And she gets, that's okay. That's, that's old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got hours and from sun up to sundown.
and sometimes 7 days a week.
Yeah, so that's beautiful.
Yeah, so Dr. Ramell Smith is here. He has an unbelievable bio that doesn't even speak to actually who he is. He owns his own consulting service called Blacksmith. He worked for Children's Hospital, I met him when he was working for Children's Hospital. He used to work for MPS. He is a psychologist. He currently now works for the Milwaukee Bucks. Your title with the Bucks is?
Team psychologist.
Team psychologist.
Yes,
and that's a new position that they created.
Yeah, they just created it last May.
Yeah. They created it for you, right?
Well, I mean, they were going to bring somebody in, and I just was the person who happened to be, I guess, blessed enough to get the position.
Is that across the NBA, or is that just a Milwaukee Bucks thing?
It's just, I mean, it's with the NBA, but just with the Milwaukee Bucks specific.
No, I meant, are all the teams adopting a team psychologist?
A lot more than before. What we've done in Milwaukee, and I got to give props to Jason Kidd, is he created a position that's somewhat unique to the NBA, where he's kind of engrafted me inside of the team, where I'm part of the actual fabric of the team, where most people you kind of have like ambulatory kind of clinical service. They'll come in, go, and whatnot like that. But I'm actually with the team. I just left practice 24/7, so where they
phenomenal.
go, I go. So, yeah.
Well, I hear a lot about Jason Kidd, so seemed like a really, really, good spirit. I don't know much about him. I mean, I just see him, from afar. So, but
no, I mean, I think when you just look at the change of the Milwaukee Bucks, a lot of that starts from the top down. We got great administrators staff with the GM and assistant GM, but definitely Coach Kidd came in with a new coaching staff, a new energy, and what he's tried to create in a business environment is a family-like atmosphere. And for as much as I think you can in this type of environment, he has.
Right.
He coaches like he played. He's a point guard. He knows how to get people in the right position to make them succeed. Well,
we have to. I had a couple of questions just listening to you, so I definitely have. I'm intrigued by not only who you are and your background, and also your native Milwaukeean. So I'm intrigued about a lot of things. But let's, as we usually try to start our show off with. Paying homage to our ancestors.
No doubt.
I believe that you talked about some shoulders you're standing on right now, some people who have mentored you, and I would, no question, would like to know who mentored the doctor that we just talked about.
Dr. Juliet Martin?
Yes, and so
Wow.
that lineage is the lineage of our ancestors. That lineage is what we celebrate right now. We give... we pay tribute, we pay homage to those who came before us, who laid the foundation. It's very easy for us to look at the running back who makes it into the end zone without looking at those who open the holes. I was meeting with, early in the week, I was meeting with a woman by the name of Dr. Emma Chappelle, and she was the campaign finance manager for Jesse Jackson for his 2 terms as running for president. And when you looked at, but Jesse Jackson wouldn't have run if it wasn't for Dick Gregory and Shirley Chisholm, who both run national campaigns. And one of the big things in that campaign, in the Jesse Jackson campaign, was the fiduciary. Will they be able to raise the money and manage the money correctly? Because, the image of our community is that, we can't manage money. So they were able to raise almost $20 million. They managed it to a T. There was no hiccups whatsoever. But it brought me to the attention when I saw the election day, and in the crowd, they scanned and they showed Jesse Jackson
with
just crying.
his eyes. Yeah.
Now, had it not been for Jesse Jackson, there would have not been a Barack Obama. Had it not been for Dick Gregory, there would not have been a Jesse Jackson. Had it not been for a Barack Obama or an Al Sharpton, there would not have been a Barack Obama. And had it not been for Shirley Chisholm, there would not have been a Jesse Jackson. So we are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. Had it not been for the glorious fight of our ancestors, who struggled under the most inhumane conditions, but maintained their dignity And also, they maintain their belief in America. I call them the true Americans, because when they didn't have anything, they still uphold the concept of democracy and freedom and liberty and the pursuit of justice. So they did it, and they held it down. And so we pay tribute to all of our ancestors. And the closest thing to our ancestors that we want to now also acknowledge is our elders. Our men and women who are out there who they're seasoned, but they know firsthand. See, the young people today can only imagine. They talk about racism. Mm-hmm. They don't know what racism is until when your life is threatened. Now, we have this situation that's currently with our young boys across the country being threatened by the police. And that whole campaign of Black Lives Matter is a reflection of some serious things going on. But there were over 50,000 lynchings. So they had a lynching about a couple weeks ago, and all the news stories covered it like it was a big deal. Well, what about all of our ancestors who died on the ropes of these trees and laid there and stayed there until they decayed? Or I used to hear the stories of how the people would come, and it became the whole concept of picnic became an issue because it was a gathering. If you look at some of those pictures, you see 4 or 5 of our ancestors hanging on the tree, dead, and everybody's happy. Everybody's excited. Everybody's having fun. And for souvenirs, they should cut a piece of their bodies off as souvenirs. I mean, this is some weird stuff. So our ancestors endured all of that. And our elders today, especially the elders, we got elders now that are born in their 20s. Elders that were born in their 30s. They were adults in the whole segregation. They were adults when we were colored only. Mm-hmm. Colored doors, and couldn't go into hotels. Couldn't eat out of these restaurants. Couldn't drink off these water fountains. Couldn't even have these positions that we have today. So we pay tribute to our ancestors. We will never forget, and we will never let your fight and your sacrifices go in vain. For those who are out there who get it, who understand it, we got to rally together to maintain and to fight and to uphold the legacy of our ancestors. And we also have to challenge those individuals who believe that they're doing it on their own. I seen a movie yesterday, and the guy says, well, I built this company on my own, and only thing my father did was gave me $8 million.
The only thing.
Yeah. What an idiot. You follow what I'm saying?
No doubt.
What an idiot. Okay? And I said, in life, what I said is probably that was the 3rd time he did it, too. The other 2 times he failed.
Right.
Yeah, most businesses do.
Exactly. So we are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. And for those brothers and sisters who are in positions, you didn't get there because you some great person. You got there because somebody has fought for the right for you to be where you are and give you the opportunity, give you access. And sure, you had to earn it. I'm sure, Doctor, you had to. Nobody gave you passing all those tests and exams you had to go through. But clearly, there was a time when you weren't even allowed in some of these schools.
No, and if I could just make a point that I remember when I graduated and became a doctor, my grandfather had a chance to come. And
that's phenomenal.
I never saw him cry in his life. We talked about that before. And when he looked at me, I could tell because he never got to finish high school because of what it was. But the pride that he had in his eyes for me seeing like, I made this happen. Like I couldn't have this happen, but I did things so each generation could get better. That was the best feeling in the world. And
so that's what it is. We are a link in the chain. We're just one link in the chain. And we are, if we do this thing right and we have the right perspective, we won't have this kind of, and I'm really glad you're talking about with the Bucks, because some of the young athletes don't understand there was no black people in the NBA, and how that we integrate the NBA or all sports, how we integrated this country. But there was a time where blacks weren't allowed in the NBA, and everybody they had to be 10 times, 20 times better, and they did it. And so our hats off. Our prayer is that our ancestors, they rest in peace, that their spirits are alive, they're comfortable, they're in lofty positions in the afterlife, and their spirit can enter us and reach us, starting with our ancestors, starting with our elders to us, and that we are able to pass that spirit down to our children and the children's children, the children who are not even born yet, who are not even thought about yet, so that we can continue this struggle, this movement of freedom and justice and equality in this country.
Ashe.
Ashe.
So it's been a busy it hasn't even been 2 weeks. I'm thinking it's 2 weeks. It's only been a week. You were just here Friday.
Okay.
You like your point?
Yeah. I don't know. Look, I look at the schedule and
you just say, where am I supposed to be?
Where am I
next?
supposed to? Yeah, the night before, what does the schedule
or
look like?
sometimes a few minutes before, right?
Yeah, I'm like, where am I supposed to be at, Tosha?
And what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I do know about the radio show. That one, I knew about that one. But
well,
other than that, it's fast paced.
You just keep it moving. So a couple things. We're so glad to have Dr. Smith. He won't even let me call him Dr. Smith anymore. Yes, makes me call him Ramell.
Yes, ma'am.
And so Ramell,
how old are you, Ramell?
42.
I see a young man. That's good. I love it. 42.
I don't know how young that is no more. But.
Yeah, no, 42 is a sweet spot. And look, you tell it to somebody 75, you be like 42, you're a baby.
I remember
I know you.
Back in the day.
Yeah, you're 42, man. You know what? In life, they say you're not even really a man until after you're 40. So you really can't even consider. So we got it all twisted. We say it was 18.
18.
No, that's not true. That's not even nowhere close.
And even from a biological standpoint, the frontal lobe in your brain doesn't fully develop till you're 25. So the executive function, the part that calls for reasoning, problem solving, things of that nature, isn't fully developed till you're 25. And that's known from a biological standpoint. But yet we emancipate our adults, our people at 18 falsely.
And if you look at in biblical studies, 40 is a benchmark. And so you turn 40 in a number of different references. And so if we really had our act together, we would really come to understand our manhood, coming into our manhood and our womanhood. Well, actually, I wouldn't even say womanhood because women mature much more faster than men. But definitely coming into our manhood in 40. So when you said 42, I say, yeah. That's like, yeah. That's look. You right in the swing of it, brother. You right in the sweet part of life. Right in the sweet spot of life. And the question is, what do you do with that sweet part? But that's another question, another time. but it's good to see that you who you are at 42. That's great.
So you host a television show also as well,
yeah,
right?
it's a local television show on Matter called Ask the Blacksmith, where one of the things with mental health being so taboo in the African-American community, I just thought it was a way which I could get information to the community that was free, that didn't cause you to have to, leave the convenience of your own home. Sometimes it can be somewhat, I don't even want to say embarrassing, but it's a lot of taboo that come with it. But also I thought I could put it and spin it in a voice in which they could understand it, which they could recognize it and appreciate it. So actually I started doing it back in September 2007 with my sister, and we've been doing it since then. So it's a show. It evolved from just a pure mental health to really recognizing how do we strengthen ourselves from a mind, body, and soul perspective, but obviously with the twist that was directly formatted for our community.
I done a little bit of studying, and one of the things that I picked up out of the kind of, and I talk a lot about the legacy of slavery because, even though some of us think it's like so far removed that why you can even have this kind of conversation. But if you look at almost everything that's affecting us, it has a direct relationship and correlation to slavery. And one of the things you said that the taboo about mental health is really I've seen that it's more a value situation. And the value is that we don't value ourselves as human. So, and you say mental health, the issue of drug addiction.
Oh yeah, that's
is a big big part of mental health.
That's one of the coping mechanisms. I say self-destructive coping mechanisms. It's a way to disassociate, to get out of the land of reality, get into fantasy land, get away from the pain. It's a quick fix. The only thing is it has temporary lasting periods, and then you have to keep doing it. And the more you do it, obviously, the more problems that it brings.
And so the pain, though, is what you're trying to cope with or trying to satisfy or fix, and that pain's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we inherit pain. We inherit the pain of our parents. Our parents inherit the pains of their parents, and then we now bring slavery right into our homes.
Oh, that's absolutely true, because even, I mean, if people talk about, like you just said, they say, oh, slavery, that was long ago. I said, okay, even if you want to say that, which is false, but let's say we give you that, then you still have to deal with the legacy of Jim Crow, which lasted forever. And then even now, if you go into today, you still see the discrepancies, within the communities, people talking about second-class citizenship, never really feeling the same, appreciated, accepted into the community when you feel like a second-class citizen, like a stepchild. You talk about the pain and the frustration that it causes. I mean, that's Langston Hughes. I, too, am America. Why do you have to keep telling people that it was our ancestors who built this, but yet you don't want to give us exactly what we need to just be considered men? And so when you talk about that pain and frustration, it has a lot of different possible dysfunctional manifestations afterwards.
And my father was a heroin addict for years, and when I used to look at my father, and I used to say, but I loved my father, so I don't get it twisted. I mean, I would take a bullet for my father. And I remember doing a number of different things. When I kind of just would look into his eyes and his soul, I seen a beaten man. Mm-hmm. A man that had probably lost the potential for life, and just I seen a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, and you're right. Then the heroin or drugs or alcohol or whatever becomes, a medication.
And I don't want to make this an excuse for anybody to use drugs, but the different things about it is when you do certain drugs, especially like opiates and whatnot, it excites a different part of your brain, especially when you talk about cocaine, that elicits the dopamine levels inside of your brain. And those are the brain cells that make you feel good. That's why we love to do stuff that gives us an adrenaline rush, whether it's sexual activity, whether it's the rush of gambling, whether it's the rush of shopping. You hear people saying retail therapy or actual drugs, because what they do is they give a surge to the brain. The only thing is it's a temporary rush, and it has counterproductive effects. So really when people are doing drugs, that's really a cry for help, because they're saying, I want help, I want it to feel better. The only negative thing is it's got some negative results to it. So what we have to do is find what gives us that rush, that good feeling, but keep it going. And I think just speaking as far as like what you're doing specifically in the community, that gives the number one thing, because what you talked about, when you look into any person's eyes, you want to see if there's hope. When there's hope, there's life. And when there's life, then there's that urge to do better. It's that will to go on.
Fight.
But when that light is gone, when that hope is gone, then it's a self-destructive pattern.
And it's a sad look. And I say our community is suffering from an extreme level of hopelessness as a community. And so one of the things I've been working on trying to is develop some things that we could talk about good.
Yes, sir.
That we can get excited about. I mean, we can get excited about the Bucks. I mean, if they make it to the playoffs, everybody feels good. When the Green Bay Packers was, they were in the playoff. They was away from Super Bowl. I mean, everybody. I mean, almost one play too, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, right. They were like, literally like a play away from the Super Bowl. I mean, everybody gets excited about that. That kind of activity is good for the soul.
No doubt about it.
And so for us as a community, we have to get organized and create those kind of activities. And the media is obviously not going to, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So the media's primary focus is to talk about those things that are negative, and they'll in the 25th page in the little corner they'll talk about something positive. So we can't let the majority majority define our good things.
No doubt
That's
about
so.
it.
That's why the WNOV is a absolutely essential
Critical
for our community from a big picture. This is why the newspapers are critical.
Yes.
But we gotta have some wins, some community wins, some psychological wins to combat, so people can have hope and aspirations that, you know, as the light of hope dimmers, and then you get this jolt. Now that when it opens, it can create a whole new segment of life that you never had before. And you know, people want to win. They want to fight. They want to do things, and they feel comfortable though that it's not going to be in vain, or it's not just so big, it's so huge, it's overwhelming.
No, you know what you say is absolutely point. I take it back from a neurobiology standpoint.
Boy, he's dropping it, boy. Let me see. He just dropping it. Look, I'm talking from layman's perspective. Yeah.
Let's break it down, because what you say, but we have these chemical transmitters in our brain. One is called serotonin, but the thing about serotonin, that's what makes you feel good. So when people are depressed, they get on a medication that's called the SSRI, serotonin, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And what it does, it increases the serotonin. But the thing is, serotonin is something natural in your body, and increases naturally. Your serotonin goes up every time you smile, every time you hear a good story, every time, even if you just see a good deed being done, your serotonin goes up. So watching the news is a serotonin decreaser. So what you say as far as increasing the hope, increasing the value, what we need to do is to be around positivity. That's why, like when you sad and you see somebody who you love sad, you try to make them laugh. We don't even know what we're doing, but what we're doing is increasing that serotonin, because we know that it's something about a smile that's a medicine.
And the body can heal itself. And the body is and just, this is where you have to have faith, because when you start examining when you breaking it down scientifically,
it's a self-healing mechanism.
It's just phenomenal.
I mean, you look at
what we're talking about.
You look at your body from a scar. You get a cut. Long as you get out of the way of it, the
it
body will heal itself.
Exactly.
And it's the same way with everything else inside of our mind, inside of our hearts. If we get out the way.
Well, that's a big part. Get out the way could mean, for us psychologically, means understanding we got problems. Understanding where the pain is coming from. Understanding where the challenges are coming from. Where's these messages coming from? How do we dissect these messages? Where is our antenna? Is our antenna strong enough to understand what these messages are and where they're coming from? Because what I've learned, I listen and I learn, if it's telling me something negative about black people, I reject it. And it comes in all kinds of packages, in all kinds of ways. But nope, that sounds negative. And then it flip it. It says it's black inferiority or white supremacy. I heard it. I gotta reject it. But I built that antenna. I built the receptors to see it. But you got to, way I do it is I got to study. I have to study. I have to listen to our great ancestors, what they were saying and how they were saying it. I got to understand the context of language. I have to understand the context of these different systems, because now the racism and the inferiority is embedded in the systems. So you don't have Jim Crow. You have what they call James Crow Esquire, right? So well, because they making rules and laws and they controlling policy, and they controlling public opinion, and they controlling rules and administrative rules and regulations.
Yes, sir.
And so by the time you look up and you don't win in public opinion, laws are being made
race neutral.
And look, there you go. As brother, what's the brother we just had?
Umar Johnson.
Umar says the new racism is to say there's no racism.
Exactly. We're gonna dig in deeper. As you can tell, they've warmed up.
Oh yeah, I'm getting hyped now.
It's getting hot.
I'm getting hot. I'm getting hyped.
Ask you to join in on the conversation. You can call in at 444-5250. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. We're going to dig a little bit deeper and talk about these images that we see, where they come from, how they impact us, and what it is that we can do about it. You're listening to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM, WNOV, The Voice. Welcome Back to University Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. We are live today. In effect, Rahim is here. He's got cooking. He's got warmed up. He got a partner in crime.
Yeah, I definitely do. In fact, there was a conversation during the break that I'd like to restate, and I think the question was, well, how does this perpetuate this self-hate and black inferiority? And we somebody mentioned Willie Lynch, and Willie Lynch, and definitely none of these jokers are geniuses, by the way. But you don't need to be a genius when you have that much power. You control. You use some basic things and you can win. And one of the things that the basic things that Willie Lynch instituted is the magnification of differences. And so one of the ways also is to break the black man and the black woman, separate them, and to show that black woman that black man cannot provide or protect her. So you do this for 300 years, it becomes ingrained. And to save her sons, because a mother loves her children, she will teach him how to be inferior, so he could grow up to be 7 feet tall, 6'8", 400 pounds, and he could be, yes sir, yes boss, we sick boss, and the attitude of defeat, so that he could save his life. And so that is the mindset that we inherited. That's the mindset. Now, the beauty of us is that we were able to smash that mindset. Many of us coming from illiteracy, absolute abject poverty, and we're able to move in a very quick period of time. But there's still a large population of our people still struggling with that mindset.
Sir. Yes, sir. I mean, and you said it before, when you talk about Joyce DeGruy wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slavery Disorder.
Sure.
And when you talk about that, that's all it is. When you talk about, we always talk about how's a person raised, and you look at two things, nature and nurture. The mother is the first teacher. The baby is inside of the mother. So all of the genes, from a hierarchy, heredity standpoint, everything that's in her is transmitted into the baby. But then when you do that based on then the nurturing of what we were taught, and even if you look like just into the 50s and 60s, because one of the things I talked about my grandfather earlier, he was so excited about me becoming a doctor. He said, they called me boy, but they're going to call my grandson doctor. And that was something that was still inside of his head at that time. And so when he would tell me about some of the things that they had to go through just to survive, to maintain, heads being down, the people, they had age.
Don't eyeball me, boy.
Things of that nature. You understand what it was, but the sad part was they had to for a survival
Of
standpoint.
course.
But the question was, how could you overcome it? How can you say we got to do this for this time period, but my posterity, my next generation, we're gonna teach them different. And then when the time came, my people taught me, just the opposite. It was like I'm not inferior to anybody.
So where were you born and raised at?
Born and raised right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 7th and Melvina.
What schools did you go to?
You know what? It's funny you say that. 7th and Melvina, I grew up right across the street from the old Green Bay Avenue School where I'm matriculated.
Universal.
That's my grandmother.
Oh, we gotta get you back there.
West Melvina.
Okay.
I grew up right across the street there. I went there to the 5th grade. Then I went to Samuel Morris Middle School, and then the Rufus King High School, where I graduated from.
And then what year did you graduate high school?
1990. Went on 25 years this year.
Just not that long ago, just back in the day.
Yeah, I was on my fifth mindset.
Consciousness, level of consciousness.
Yeah, I was like, by that time I said, you know what? I'm not transforming anymore. I don't know anything. Tell me, so you graduate. Where did you go to college at, and where did you get your other education from, and what kind of education do you have?
Right after high school, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, which is about 90 miles from here. Upon graduating Whitewater,
And you got an undergraduate degree?
Undergraduate degree, a bachelor's of science in psychology. I had a double major in occupational safety and psychology. I was going to be a fireman psychologist, but then when they told me it was going to take me another 2.5 years to graduate with the double major, I switched it down to a minor and got out of there in '94.
Got you. And then after that?
Well, that's when life got real for me. On the night of my graduation, I got arrested. I had a scholarship to go to Minnesota and to Michigan State. I was going to try to get my doctorate by the time I was 25. I got into some stuff. I won't blame it all on the police. The night I got arrested, that was a bogus thing, but probably was a blessing in disguise. That's what I got arrested for, than rather some of the other stuff I was doing that, be honest, wasn't on the up and up. Because of that, I had to do 18 months probation, lost my scholarship. I couldn't get an interstate compact to leave the state. So my sister, it was the funniest thing, she was coming to bail me out of jail. She just said, hey, you know what, I'm through with you. You know what, I just got married, me and my husband coming to get you out. You're not about to mess up my thing. And so I say that, to the parents, it was a tough love, because when she gave me that tough love, instead of enabling me, keep helping me out when I was messing up, that was one of the things that kind of got me turned around. And ironic enough, she got me my first job once I started doing it as a paraprofessional at Claire Barton Elementary School. And there I saw my old football coach, James Hazelwood, rest in peace. He was a great man. He saw that I was, on probation and everything like that, but I had a degree. So he had talked with some people in MPS, and they had a program there where as long as you had your degree, you could, become a teacher. And so they talked with some people. I had to give another props to another black lady, Cynthia Gallen in MPS. I went in there on probation. She didn't know really, where I was going to go or whatnot. But I guess she saw something in me, took a chance, and started teaching. I taught at Riverside for a year. Decided that I wanted to go back to school, applied at UW Milwaukee, where I got my master's in educational psychology, and then my PhD in urban education with an emphasis in school psychology. And I did my internship at a place called Ethan Allen School. It's in Wells, Wisconsin, and that's Department of Juvenile Correction. So that's for juvenile, that's prison.
Offenders,
that's all they could do. So working inside of there, because of the background I had, where I came from, I could relate to the guys so well. And so I just stayed working after I graduated. I stayed working in the correctional system for another 5 years. But then it got frustrated because I saw so many people who I knew. And the crazy part was, working in the prison system, I saw so many men that were so much smarter than me. And, when you look at what's going on with our community, I said, man, this is all our resources. This is all our talent. And, so it got a little frustrated. So I was like, well, what are some other things I could do? Seeing the men and women, matriculate, recidivate back in. So I started working at Children's Hospital when I started working there, trying to work with children, at an early age to see if we could try to prevent some of those things from coming from. So that's a quick history of myself.
Well, that's what I was thinking about when you was talking? I was thinking about all those tests and all those exams and all those books and studying you had to do. And it's a hell of a statement you made, and I make that statement all the time, that there's so many of us that have just got more skills than we do. But for the pothole and the net, it's like a fisherman. And that net is a very strong net. Some of us get out of that net.
Yeah.
Some don't make it.
But there are so many of us get
don't.
caught in the net.
Yeah.
And give you an idea, we represent in America roughly about 45 million people, roughly about 14% of Americans' population. So if things were fair, just relatively fair, we should have 14% of the prison population. There are 2.3 million men in prison. There are 1.5 million black men in prison. So that number is roughly about 55-60%
disproportionate
of the prison. But that's a false number. Why? Because we talk about 1.53 million men. We talk about 2.5 million in prison. 90% of them are men. So you got to take our population of 14% and take half of them are women.
Yes.
So we're now down to 7%, and we now measuring to about a 60% number. So we should be about 7%, but that's not even true. You got to take the ones, half of that is children.
And I think you're being
Mm-hmm.
I think it's even more than that. I mean, when you're saying half, I think
Well, I'm
it's
being conservative,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
and just to make a point because, you know, without going to a calculator,
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. I'm saying
so,
you're being conservative
you know,
when you say
but
half.
we starting at a disparity that's off the chart at 14%. That should be the population, and we're 60%. But when in reality, we shouldn't be 4%. We should be more like 3%. And we're 60% of the population. So when I say that net is out there and it's trapping, no matter how talented you are or how good you are, and clearly when you go into the prisons and you see the warehousing of our souls, you see our natural resources, it undermines everything that we're doing. It cripples our ability to get out of this mess that we're in as long as we feed into we getting caught in that trap.
I mean, and I think that's by design. I mean, if you look at the prison population, you talk about those numbers from 1900 to 1970, our prison population was pretty static, around 270, 280,000 for those years. And so then when you start to think about
ballooned.
Yeah. So that what does that coincide with? You know, we talk about we're not playing chess and we're not playing checkers, we're playing chess. Well, you think about it, you're thinking 5 moves ahead. Okay, you got these civil rights movements of 65, 64 and whatnot. So now what do we do to get you there? You get with demagogue politics where we start talking about these draconian laws, 3 strikes and you're out, mandatory sentencing, all of these things. And then when we look at what people are in for, as far as like the lightness of the crimes, most non-violent, as far as at least that's registered, that's convicted, and the amount of time that they're getting, you're talking about a real literal genocide of a population. You're killing people, like they said before, Kenjufu said, you kill them before they grow. But what I think what we have to look at, this is a capitalistic society.
Right.
They're looking at how they can make money and
Everything.
who they can warehouse. And who do they look at? It's the whole new Jim Crow. It said, how can we make money? So it killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You take away a population that was about to grow and about to start to have more power. But 2, you also increase your pockets by then now, because when we look at the amount of private businesses that make money off the prisoners, that's better than shipping people out the country. If I ship A.O. Smith out to Mexico, I got to send all that equipment out there. But if I can just ship A.O. Smith to 12th and State, where MSDF is, now think about it. I got labor. I ain't got to pay for insurance. I ain't got to worry about no laws. I ain't got to worry about no unions. I ain't got to worry about no language differences. It's all there. So when we think about what it is, the prison industrial complex is so very real. It's no, people talk about conspiracy and things of this nature. I mean, it's real, and it's right before our eyes.
We got to take a call. Caller, you have a question or a comment?
I just have a comment. Probably just a few comments. I just want to thank Rahim, for the Universal Company. My daughter just started going there, and I was already teaching her about our history. And it's so reassuring for her to see black men there and black women actually teaching, and you can see the youth. As long as we keep showing them what they need and talking to them like we need to talk to them, it's going to be powerful. I believe this is the blacksmith who's been writing in Milwaukee Journal, and I just want to thank him for his articles. I just started reading his, as I've always been reading Rahim's, but his last article teaching us, I already knew, but we didn't just come from slavery. We were kings, queens, pharaohs, gods, not only in Egypt, but over in Africa. So I don't know if y'all hear it enough, but just thank you for what you're doing, and let you know that the youth, because I'm 24, and it's a group of us, and we actually coming together, and we actually standing up. We finna stop what they doing to our boys. So it was just a thank you comment to you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Boy, I tell you, it goes back to
powerful.
that. No, it goes back to that chemical. That chemical was
serotonin.
that serotonin.
You got high.
That serotonin was the sister. You just fired me up because when they start. Here's what I get. It says, well. Somebody says, well, I send my children to Universal, or I work at Universal. I said, oh, here I come. Here I come. But,
it's good to get confident.
It's good. And here's the thing that I thank you, sisters, so much, because, and I know what we're doing is not perfect. There's no such thing.
No.
But here's where I think we're delusional, and I think it's another sign of our hopelessness, that kind of the manifestations of a more deeper sickness.
Yes, sir.
And is that to expect perfection when we're not ready to even to put the fire on it. You know, when you take a resource out of the ground, first of all, to get it out of the ground is a massive undertaking.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that means that's work, right? And to refine it or to take it from its raw stage to its beauty stage is another level of work.
Yes.
And usually it's pressure. It's absolute unbelievable pressure to take a raw resource and into a product that we can use or we admire as beauty.
Yes, sir.
And so if we expect to have the kind of perfection in our community, about our institutions, about our organizations, we got to hang in there and we got to fight for it.
Work and patience, no doubt.
Exactly. So but the thing, here's the attitude. I'm out.
But it's the microwave generation. We want everything right now.
Well, only for black. If it's white, in many cases, we're prepared to have the patience. We're prepared to have the second look. I remember a guy told me, he says he had he went out of business. He had a dry cleaners. He says he went out of dry cleaners. He says the guy, he had messed up a shirt. You know, it's a natural phenomenon.
Yeah.
You're at the dry cleaners.
Right.
It
can happen.
It's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? So he messed up the guy's shirt. The guy says, I will never, ever, ever bring my shirts back here again. Now, that kind of attitude, and I'm not suggesting that you should support mediocrity, or bad business, but that ain't the case. We got it. As Malcolm said, the biggest boycott is the boycott that black people put on other black people. And so my position, and I wrote in this article, and I know we're not ready to talk about it, but I wanted to say, we got to take one step at a time.
Well, it's timely for what we're just discussing. It's right on time, talking about that. It's gonna take one step at a time. It's not gonna happen overnight.
Well, I guarantee you, you probably, when you was describing your track record up into your getting your doctorates.
Yeah.
Well, you got to read between the lines. There's a whole lot of paths there's a whole lot of things you had to make a lot of right decisions along the way. One wrong decision, and that you wouldn't be sitting here today saying you're Dr. whoever, right?
Yes, sir.
So the bottom line is that you took one step at a time. You didn't expect the outcome of being a doctor and not was prepared to earn the right to be a doctor. That means that's the biggest difference. So as a community, we can't expect perfection. We are measuring ourselves against institutions that are resourced for the last 400 years, that are valued for the last 400 years. There's a certain sense of supremacy, a certain sense of ownership, a certain sense of understanding that they have. So we stop using them as a measurement, as an outcome, because we don't understand how they got there. And if you understood how you got there, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. If I go give me about 90 people want to work for nothing,
free labor,
and all I gotta do is feed them. I don't even gotta feed them right. I don't have to clothe them. The harsh winters of Milwaukee, and I ain't gotta even worry about no heavy coats and no boots or nothing. I could just barely give them scraps, and own their children. I can mate them. I can sell them off when times get hard.
You can procreate with them, and that's a whole other.
I got total access. Come on. I'm not impressed with this situation. Are you kidding me? But so you have to understand where we started if you're going to understand where we're going. And when we go, wherever we going and how we got to get, we have to understand we're not going to get it in one swoop. We're going to have to earn it. That means we're going to have to have patience with each other. We're going to have to fight and, politely and respectfully fight for perfection. But we can't leave the table. So part of what we're attempting to do at Universal is build an institution that we can all own and drive its direction. And nobody owns it. It's not owned by Rahim.
It's shared.
Yeah, it's shared. It's ours. And what our black kids need to see you in our schools, Tosha in our schools. We go in those schools and we talking to those kids, and they just love it, because it, again, going back to the psychological impact of what the mediums are, how we're being portrayed. It's a relief when they come into our schools. a burden is lifted off them, and they don't even know it. But they can feel much more comfortable because there's not these negative images that's constantly telling them they're nothing. They're nothing. Even I was watching a movie yesterday. Even in a movie, laughing and joking, but they was carrying so many negative stereotypes. It's just unbelievable. Every stereotype you can think of about us was being carried. We laughing and we're joking, and it's okay to joke and laugh about yourself.
Right.
But it's really promoting a really negative stereotype, and there's no counter
For that.
So when there's no counter, it's overwhelming, and it becomes reality.
Well, I wanted to. I don't know if you were probably at basketball practice last Friday when we were talking, and Rahim really connected the dots between partially why we do what we do at Universal, and he started talking about the frontal cortex of the brain and how young people are taking in all these different images and how they filter them, and how at some point they don't have anything to offset what they're taking in. And then you come today and talk about the fact that really until the age of 25 the brain really isn't even developed.
Yeah. And I mean, what makes that even scarier is by the age of 4, now it's not fully developed till you're 25, but by the age of 4, 90% is developed. And so that's the scary part, because it's just like,
So
this
it's
is
fixed almost.
that's the wet cement area. And so obviously the longer you are, the harder it is. So you talk about now, if our kids have gotten these messages where they can't even really interpret it really well, but they just see it, you internalize it, you feel it, you see it. So when your little kid is watching BET, watching MTV, some of those videos, some of the coonery, some of those other things, we don't think they even have a way of understanding.
Or they don't know what they're saying.
In addition to what we do in the homes and whatnot like that, that is wiring the brain. You talk about being wired. We're being wired. We're being taught at that age. And what we talk about is social learning. You learn by what you see, by hear, by what you do. And the more you respect something, the more that adds positivity to it. So when we see something and we tell them little girls when they shaking their booty when they 3, oh, that's cute. Well, that's what's being implanted in their head where you think that's it. So when you wonder how people can do certain things and say, how are you doing it? Well, that's what's been programmed. That's what's right. This is what's natural. This is what gets me accolades. This is what brings that serotonin up.
Right.
Yeah, and we also have to do, and everybody can't do this. So I'm not suggesting that everybody's going to be on a level, but Doctor, some of your colleagues and some of what I call some of the leaders in the community they have the inventory. They just got to take inventory and start measuring what are the messages, where are they coming from, how toxic are they. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to compete. You're not going to be able to. Now, we won with sheer strength and sheer power and sheer greatness, but even we're unable to combat the things that if you don't start to unpack some of the things that are taking place. So we have to look at radio. We have to look at TV. We have to look at print. We have to look at language. Nearly 90% of black people around the world are using a language that's not even theirs. So that language is upside down when it comes down to supporting others over them. So there's a built-in, in a language, there's a built-in inferiority, a superiority for the owners of the language versus those who are not the owners of the language. It's not their native language. So you either speaking Spanish, English,
French,
maybe one other.
German.
No, we got too many blacks speaking German, but definitely
Italian,
Latin, maybe.
Latin?
But we speak in a language is not ours, and in that language, in English language, there are probably at least common phrases, that denotes black inferiority. That's just in our language. And there are common phrases, 30 or 40 common phrases that of white that denote superiority. It's in our language. So normally those things wouldn't be an issue, but if you couple it with history books that we're absent in, we're bypassed, where they've translated slavery as an event like it was a Super Bowl, and it happened one day passed, and so there's
And
no
still try to
ramification.
sanitize
There's-
really what it was.
Right, there's no ramification. There was no effects from it. And if you forget about the psychological effects, let's just talk about the economic effects. Okay, because everything in a capitalist society comes back to money. And who has it and who don't have it. So if I don't have it, I got to come back. Well, why I don't have it? They got it. Inferiority. Okay, so all of these messages, and then you go with TV and the internet, and people can see things for what they are, and then they can measure the contrast of where I live, but what has actually happened. I can't be as a child but believe that it's me.
Right, something is wrong with me.
So the message of inferiority is over the top, and so, and I say, okay, and looking at the glass half empty versus half full versus half empty, I say, shoot, it's lucky that we even doing what we're doing.
Right.
That's amazing.
Exactly, but it goes to our greatness as a people. But we have to be smarter, and we have to begin to break this thing down and organize this thing.
We have a caller on the line. Caller, you have a question or a comment?
Hi, yes, long-time listener. I've got a question for you. I've been talking with a number of my black friends, and
You're black?
we've been
You said you're black friends?
Yes, my
Okay.
black. I'm white,
Oh, okay.
and I've been talking with a number of them. We've been meeting with and such, and one of the issues that keeps coming up is that the Jewish community has the Jewish Federation Alliance, the Latino community has their Federation Alliance. Is there a single stronger, Federation Alliance for the black community in Milwaukee? I very rarely hear anything from the NAACP anymore. I'm just curious if there's any organization that's looking that's focused on the black community.
No, it's not only in Milwaukee, but for the entire nation. There's none that has elevated a strategic thinking and for a strategic planning for and representing the black community, and that's the problem. And I'll tell you why. And again, I also caution those who compare us to the other ethnic groups. I'm amazed that I know at least 10 multimillionaires, Jewish multimillionaires, who came here with humble beginnings. I know quite a few Italians who came here, who are very wealthy, who came here with humble beginnings. So, but I start to dissect it, and I said, you know what? There are things that we can learn from that. But one thing that happens to the black community that did not happen to those communities, they were not robbed of their heritage. They were not robbed of their culture. They were not also extracted from the value of their culture to create an in value of their culture.
And I'm not looking to minimize the past.
No.
I'm looking to look towards the. I'm looking at helping. I'm literally looking to help the future of the community.
Well,
and I understand that, being that I'm a middle-aged white guy that is a Republican, but still wants to help the black community because I have a number of friends in it. I know I need to distance myself with respect to that because it's not me that's going to solve the problem. It's the black community that's going to solve the problem.
Without
How
question.
can I help? And I know that there is a very strong religious context within the community. But have they at all tried to organize and
I think again it goes back to and I don't want to undermine it, and I don't definitely want to trivialize it. I mean, this is a very complex situation. But if I take a high level response to what you're saying, the tribalism that exists in our community is been instituted and is living and is breathing and is very, very strong. And if the culture, the African culture, in many respects, is completely absent, is contrary to what is taking place right now. So that means we're living, in many respects, in a culture that's not ours. So what we're saying is that and what I've been pushing for the black community is that we have to organize, no matter what, and we have to do some of the things you're talking about. And federations, the Jewish Federation, the Italian Federation, associations, and whomever, that's really organization. And they are acting on behalf of the collective, where they don't feel they haven't been told that's racism or racist to protect the values of the Jewish community. Or if the Chinese will come and they say, we're going to protect the values of the Chinese community. And the Irish is going to do the same. The Polish is going to do the same. But for the black community, there's a mindset within the black community for us to do that. We will be acting as racist. And that is fundamentally a weakness that we inherited, and we are fighting and combating that weakness now.
We're going to take a break, gentlemen. When we come back, we're going to dig deeper. We're going to take it one step further, because actually that call was perfect timing. Did you pay that gentleman to call in? And
no, but I appreciate it. You know what? I had a you know what? And one of the things that people might look at, some of the things that I'm also a believer in one world, one people, and so I represent the African American community in this equation. And so, but we all one people. And I fundamentally believe that the African American community has been given a raw deal. And so, but I do believe that we're going to need all other communities in support of us. Because like Martin Luther King says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And if we're going to grow humanity, this is unacceptable for all of us.
Exactly.
This is not just unacceptable for black people. This is unacceptable for the dream of America, for the ideas of America. And if the ideas of America are the ones that we've been told they are, then that means America's greatness will never be achieved until this is happening.
Well, interesting you should say that. Just had a conversation with Claiborne Benson, and it was a point in time right here in Milwaukee when it wasn't us, but it was the Irish that were disenfranchised, and that, so it's a slippery slope, so you got to be careful. You got to make sure you look out for everybody. We're going to take a break. We come back from the break. We're going to talk about what coming together looks like, what organizing looks like, and we're going to talk to Dr. Smith a little bit more. Fascinating, man. I think you're going to have to become a regular on the show now that you and Rahim have hooked up together.
Absolutely.
You are listening to Universally
We got
Speaking.
another co-host.
Another co-host. You are listening to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. Welcome back to Universally Speaking with Rahim Islam on 860 AM WNOV, The Voice. Well, one of our regular quote-unquote co-hosts and guests, Damien, is here with us.
Hey, what's happening?
How you doing?
Beautiful.
He's going to spit a little bit, share something with us, and then we're going to dig back into this conversation. It's gotten good. Rahim is ready to go. He looked like he could do about 2-3 more hours today.
No, I can't. Yeah. My head is hurting.
Go ahead, Damien.
All right.
Thanks, Damon.
No problem. No problem. To quote Money Making Mitch, homie, I am the bridge between the rookies and the vets, the parents and the kids. Them straight-laced cats to all them brothers doing bids. I'm old enough to tell you how I was, then show you how it is. Out on the street, no time for sleeping or dozing. That's why the shorties ain't dreaming and their futures are frozen. So they buy into them lies that the street life chose them. Mama lost them, but yo, I got the flow to defrost them. I kick it with the young thugs often. I'd rather see them dressed up on stage than dressed in a coffin. And running full courts without wheezing and coughing, the blunt got them. I try to catch them before they get rock bottom. New Jordans, we rock them. New jeans, we cop them to look fly, to cover the real problem. Nobody want to be Malcolm or Martin or Mike. It's all about fights and Facebook likes. A name and some fame, that's important to the streets. Making sure my people eat, that's important to me.
All right. Oh, I ain't got nobody with me, right?
Yes. You know what? I was at
Thanks, brother.
I'm really getting a better appreciation for is it spoken word? Is that the term?
Word,
spoken word? Poetry.
It's kind of all the same. It's really, I mean, these are verses, but without the music, it's spoken word.
Right.
It's
okay.
poetry.
So
it's
it could be right.
You know?
So it could be. It's phenomenal, though.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank
it's
you.
absolutely phenomenal. And I was at an event.
Muhib's event?
Yeah, Muhib.
Quabbin.
a Quabbin's event a couple of days ago, and I stayed the whole time.
Did you cry?
No, I'm not gonna tell you that. No, I shed a few tears.
Okay.
I didn't do no ugly cry though.
Okay. You didn't have to go to the bathroom this
No,
time.
I didn't. I could stick my finger up and just stop it from running. But I should share why I cry. I cry because I feel what you're saying, and for me is that I've committed my life to it. I've committed my life to change the things that you're saying. But I know we're going to have to go at it a certain way to fix it. I mean, this is not, and what I cry about sometimes is how twisted and how thick and entrenched it is, and how we have a whole, population of people who are just walking toward the slaughter.
Absolutely.
Literally unconscious, walking to their death. Either they're fast death because of values, or fast death because of their diets, a fast death because of violence, a fast death because of drugs and alcohol, a fast death because they become a culture of poverty. How do you maintain and live and recycle a mindset of poverty? That can't be a healthy life. So that's why when I hear your poems and how you extract out the realities, it really touches me. So I was at Muhib's event and Quabbin's event, and it was very powerful. So I'm having a big respect for your generation and the spoken word and the meaning of the spoken word. And I just say, man, thank you. And you're gifted.
I appreciate it.
I was with, they're doing a documentary. Spike Lee is doing a documentary with Michael Jackson. And so they had an all-day interview of Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff in Philly, and I was there. And
well, Rahim, explain why, because most people might not even know why they would be interviewing Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff.
They're interviewing. Most people didn't know. In fact, Spike said he didn't even know until he started to study some of Michael Jackson's words and some of the things he said, and he attribute his ability to write songs from Kenny Gamble. And when when the Jacksons left Motown, they weren't the Jackson 5 anymore. They were the Jacksons because Jermaine stayed with Motown. But Michael and his other brothers left, and they went to CBS. Well, Gamble and Huff produced 2 albums for them post Motown. And the creativity of really came really clear. This is Kenny saying how much creativity came out of working with Michael Jackson. While his brothers was, playing and doing whatever they were doing, Michael Jackson wouldn't leave that studio.
He was writing.
I mean, he was trying to figure out how to do it and what to do it. And if you listen to some of the, even Let Me Show You the Way, and you hear Michael Jackson, you hear it in Off the Wall, you hear it in Thriller, you hear it in Invincible, you hear it in all of his songs. You hear that kind of melody, that kind of messaging.
So people don't know the music that we come into, which is a Jackson song, was actually written and produced by Kenny Gamble.
Exactly. Let Me Show You the Way. And Let Me Show You the Way, while we're jamming, and all of us be up here, we be jamming. But listen to the lyrics. Let me show you the way. And this is why when I see us marching towards death, so I'm taking whatever time I have, and I'm connecting with those who feel the same way to try to save as many souls as we can save. And so that's why I'm connecting to this movement of this spoken word and this poetry and this spitting and this mindset that they recognize the problem. But here's my challenge to them, in which I made the comments to them. I said this: don't just be an artist. Be an activist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's fine. You got people who are, you know, great artists, but they never did anything. They never,
That's right.
they just talked about it or sung about it or wrote about it. Be an activist. So take what you have and take that passion for you to acknowledge and understand the problem and put it to use. And use, as Muhib said yesterday, there are 2 points in life. Birthdays. Your real birthday, and the next day is when you realize why you were born. And so you guys got a talent, and I want to work with you to kind of push that talent, and so that we can now save our people.
I appreciate it. You know, you said we're marching toward death. I would say that we're dancing toward death via this music. We're dancing the whole way there.
Well, I'm not going to fight you on that one. Because there was a time I was probably dancing to death too. So I remember it clearly. And it's basically on your frame of reference, because the guy says, well, you know, he says, well, back in the day, what is back in the day? 2005, 2004.
He said, no,
2005. And then my man said he would graduate in 1990. I said, okay. You guys get me nervous.
So I know
and then I with Mr. Jones, who's my main man. I mean, Mr. Jones keeps me focused, and so the perspective is just a completely different perspective.
Right. You say back in the day, he like 19.
Yeah, he back in the day when
50?
when you couldn't eyeball.
Exactly.
Let me just say what happened to before I forget, because it came to me earlier. And it's to show you the gentleman who called, the white gentleman who called. First of all, I love humanity. I love all people, no question. But I also love my people. And there was a young man I met in a Dunkin' Donut the other day, white man, and I approached him because it was freezing outside, and all he had was a jacket. So I said to him, I says, well, you must be a politician, because the only people I know who walk around with in freezing weather with no jackets on are politicians. And I said, I don't understand. He says, well, no, I'm not a politician, but I did run for an office one time, right? I says, bingo, right? And then I give him my card, and he says, thank you so much, Mr. Islam. You know what? I felt like there's hope.
Right.
Because there was a time, and if you know your history, you know that could never, ever happen. And he didn't say it. He said it with all the respect that's due. And I said, don't call me Mr. Islam. Call me Rahim. But he said it, and I thought that was
right.
There was an unbelievable human exchange that just took place
At that time. I know you and Dr. Smith, Ramell, are going to dig in. You had some questions you wanted to ask him. But before you guys did that, I wanted to make a little bit of an announcement. You are going to be doing a little bit more here on the radio.
No, we. No, we. Don't get no you. You nothing. We.
So, Ramell, when he said that co-host thing, yeah, be careful. So, starting April 6th, we are now going to be on the air on Mondays. The week of April 6th, we're going to be on the air on Mondays from 3 to 5 and Fridays 3 to 5. So, right. Milwaukee, we're about to double up on you.
That's what we need.
Double up.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and we're following, which I think is a phenomenal lineup from WNOV, and part of a game plan to bring listeners back to WNOV. So all of us, we all have to again perfect it and take responsibility. We need WNOV.
Exactly.
I mean, our community needs WNOV. But we also have to get those who are not listening to listen to WNOV. And so we got to lead with example. So with Eric coming out in the morning.
The Eric Vaughn Show. And then we'll have the Forum after Eric Vaughn. And then it'll be Al Sharpton.
The Rev.
Keep it real. And then it'll be Universally Speaking.
Right. And so I think that's
powerful.
Yeah, that's a lot of talking about the issues that affect black people, and also, God willing, we'll come up with some solutions.
Well, for me, it's black men, which, Keon, I love black men, right? No, that ain't a black man. I love black men. I love black men. And I'm going to let you guys get to it. But one of the things that, Ramell, I think was a turning point when I really just knew how powerful of an individual you were. You and I had a conversation, and I was probably about to go off the ledge or beat somebody up or call in the troops. And you said something really powerful to me about my son and about allowing him to be the man that he was growing into being, and to back up off him and let him be a man. And that was so powerful. I don't even know if you remember that conversation or not, because you've probably said it a few times. But the fact that you recognize that, and I think if more people had those types of conversations with mothers and women about their sons, that some of the things, a lot of the things, and most of the things that our sons are doing are natural, that it's in their DNA, that is what he's supposed to be doing, and that it's okay to allow him to do that. I remember that conversation, and it was a turning point for me. I gained a lot of respect for you, but it was a turning point in relationship with my son, because it actually made me proud of him, that regardless of everything that's going on around him in his life, in his environment, in his community, he still had this instinct in him to be a man, to be a warrior, to be a black man. And I don't know if I've ever thanked you for that, but that was just a powerful moment.
I don't think you have to thank me, and I think you give me way too much credit, as Brother Islam has said earlier, as far as standing on the shoulders of giants. My mom was a single mother. My parents divorced when about 8 or 9, and thank God for my coaches. I mean, my dad was in my life, but sort of like you, he had problems with alcohol and other drugs and whatnot like that. He was always in my life, but he had his issues too. Long story short, me and my mom would get into it. There's an old saying that a woman can't raise a man. And I tell people, I said, but a woman can raise a human being. I needed her for some things. There was definitely some things she could teach me. But then there are also some things that it does take a man to help with the man. And really all I was doing was repeating conversations that I heard my coaches have with my mama, my uncles have with my mama, and things of that nature. And I think that's how we learn and we grow, because you do learn from mistakes and whatnot like that. So as far as me being something extra special, now I'm just an average guy that listened and learned, made mistakes, was fortunate enough, smart enough to learn from them and go on. But as far as just to share, the knowledge that I got that I knew was helpful for me, and just passing it on. So I take those words with great heart, great sincerity. But just say, I think that's what every man's duty is when you hear something, it's to share. You hear the old saying, each one teach one. And I think that's what we have to do. And the second part to that statement is said, a woman can't raise a man, but I don't think one man can raise a man. I have 2 sons, and if the only man in their life, they're going to have the same limitations I have. So I'm grateful for all the other men that I have, as far as their grandfather, their uncles, their cousins, that help them to learn things that I can. I think that just goes back to the whole concept. It takes a village, but it takes a responsible village. And when we see people who may need us to step in, we all have to be willing to step up in that manner.
And I think here's the challenge I think that I've seen, and I worked very hard, and I was really thankful to I have a son that's 16 and a son that's 11, I can go to at least 10 or 12 men that I don't have to do the talking. I can say, look, I got a problem with, Muhammad is acting up. I mean, here's what he's doing. You need to talk to him because he ain't listening to me.
Right.
So at some point they're going to tune us out as men, and so you need that team. And so I was really happy to see. And the other thing is that we're late bloomers, so you can't look at a boy who's got the weight of the world that he's going to be responsible for, and expect him at that point in time when he's acting stupid and silly and doing ridiculous things, because that's his nature, because he got greatness coming down the pack.
Right.
And he's going to have to be able to handle it. So they late bloomers. So it ain't like they're not getting it,
Right.
but they're not getting it on your schedule.
Right.
And the other thing is that what I've seen boys do they will start to control a woman, or at least it's in their nature.
Right.
And say, Mom, you can't go out looking like that. Don't. What are you dressing?
You don't look like. No, this is it. You don't look like a mommy. I'm
right.
right.
What are you doing? Or wait a minute, boy.
Why you wearing that?
Wait a minute, boy. You I'm the mother. You the child. Right. So it's the natural phenomenon. They're never going to respect you as their leader if you want them to be leaders.
Exactly.
They will never embrace you as their leader, as a partner maybe, but not as their leader. And so that tension goes on. If you don't understand it, you're going to be fighting. You're going to be going up against that
The whole time.
And so the other thing is that you cannot feminize them. When I was growing up, my father's it's 3 boys and 1 girl, and my father made sure if I put my hands on my sister, it's over. It's over. I don't even. I dread that day. That's
You
not
still
something-
dread it.
Oh yeah, I'm getting nervous. Yeah, I dread it. But my father would say, "Y'all go down in the basement and figure it out." So he encouraged us to fight it out. That's what warriors do. I mean, respectful, and then as long as we didn't kill each other, and we didn't. That wasn't the case. But I don't think a woman would allow that to happen because she can't handle violence.
Right.
She don't
protect. You
Right.
wanna protect.
Well,
Because I got headgear and boxing gears for my boys.
Exactly.
I got 10 boys, and the mama be mad at me all the time. I said, let them, just like you said, let them work it out.
Because guess what? You got to get tough.
Right.
How else you going to get tough? And if we're talking about what is in store for our black men, our black boys becoming black men, they got to be tough as I don't know what. The question is, how do they become tough? And not artificially tough. I'm talking about real tough. Because at the end of the day, we have to transfer in them young boys responsibility. And if they don't see you taking responsibility, they're not going to take responsibility.
We have a caller. Caller, you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I had a question. I know there are some mentorship programs around for young boys, but maybe some of the fellows there, the gentleman could expound on and more, because all I know is like the Running Rebels, and because I have raised 4 sons, and well, one is deceased, and my oldest son, 40, and he's like, well, Mom, you have always been my mom and my dad. And I'm like, I never could be a dad, but I did the best I could. The other is 25 and 23. And you're right, to watch him grow from a silly boy to a responsible young man, same with my oldest son, to watch him go from, the silliness to a responsible man, that was phenomenal. And yes, I'm a woman, he would say, as he got to a certain point, like, okay, I can hear you, but I'm a man, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And that was hard to, cut the umbilical cord, But is there more programs for mentorship for young boys? I have grandsons now. The oldest is 15. And there's just only so much his mom and I can do.
Yeah, I think I think this is one of the things that strategically we have to do as a community is elevate that kind of conversation and with some real solution. In Philadelphia, we're working on a program to develop 1,000 mentors, black male mentors, and working with big brothers and big sisters. And it's a group called the Philadelphia Community Leaders, which we're kind of replicating here with the Milwaukee Community of Leaders. And also, Universal's been taking the lead in the Black Male Initiative from 2 fronts. One, how do we address the issues that impact our men? And then also, how do we also impact the issues that affect our young men? And so in the young men situation, we've been working with the city, and we've actually become one of the fiduciaries on the Beat of Change. We're starting off small, but we got to get tight and strengthen our abilities to reach. Right now, I think it's going to be roughly 50 young men. We're tightening that up, and the goal next year will be around 300 young men. So But we're looking at Running Rebels and all the other organizations. My brother
Urban Underground
and
Khalil Coleman.
Well, definitely Khalil, and we had a big press conference last week with
Safe
Khalil,
Zones.
Safe Zones, and this is all about mentorship. Also, we Andre
Lee Ellis.
which is I love
got
that
this.
billboard.
Mm-hmm.
That
We got
billboard is just absolutely phenomenal. And to see them young, and also just organically seeing all that take place. So. Fundamentally, we strategically going to have to elevate this conversation of mentorship to a higher level, because the brokenness of our family structure will not allow for us to replicate some of the men and the responsibility the young people have to take if we don't get these men in their lives.
We have another caller. Caller, you have a question or comment?
I have a comment and a question. I'm on the air?
Yes, you are.
Oh, I'm like a brother Rahim.
Walaikum
Let's go to
salam.
Rick Muhammad. I had two things. One is, I remember here in Milwaukee they had something called a rites of passage, and the Alpha Phi Alpha does that, which would be a definite. I think they still do it. And also, don't forget the Nation of Islam. They have a junior FY class. So I think we need a multiplicity of different program, because it's not no one that'll be able to take all, but it's good things that come out of all those programs, because Milwaukee is the leader in broken families, in the nation. We've been at the top for a minute, and there's a reason for that. And then the other thing I was going to ask Dr. Ramell Smith is if you can discuss, because you and I have talked about this before, the impact of the whole Willie Lynch concept, and where is that over 300 years today, and then solutions to maybe put a stop in there to stop that. Because even when I grew up in the church, when I think of the story of Pharaoh when he talked about killing the boys and sparing the women, I see that as being Willie Lynch. I'm like, well, hold up. I'm like, well, this seems like this is something that's repeated. And then the next connection to the name that I remember reading when I was in college, it was a report called the Moynihan Kissinger report, and it talked about the whole concept of the negative income tax and the whole thing. Like some of you are older people, like Sister Tosha and others, you remember when the social worker would come in the house and there she a pair of men's shoes. They'll say, "Is a man living here?" Mm-hmm. So I see a connection with all that, and if you could just speak to that, and I'll take the answer off the air.
Yeah, me and Brother Rahim even kind of talked about that off the air, and we were going to try to bring that on air. And you're right. And I tell people, I said, Willie Lynch is no genius. All it is it's the old divide and conquer strategy. And so whenever you can get division within a people, you take away the unity, and the power is within the unity. You look at that even from like the Black Power movement with the Black Panthers. When they had everything going together, you look at the infiltration from Edgar Hoover and the FBI, the things that they did to dismantle the community, which was the power base. So when you start to look at how do we get rid of the Willie Lynch syndrome, well, what we had to do is we had to understand that we are one. It's a unity. And I think one of the things that have plagued our community is two things. One, you had the kind of crabs in the barrel concept where everybody wanted to be the leader. And then, two, you had people, because we're not a monolithic group. I think sometimes we say black people as though we're a homogeneous people. We have to recognize that everybody that has melanin in their skin is really not the same of ilk as far as wanting the right things for the race as a whole. And they do look to pass. They do look to be the only one. And I think it was W.B. Du Bois who had first talked about the talented 10th that was supposed to lead the race, the top 10%. But what he recognized, usually those top 10%, the ones that were the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, the ones that we thought that maybe had the education, the financial resources, would do some great things, decided they wanted to pass, and it was about them, and they were the ones who did it by themselves, and to each his own. And I think so what we have to go back to is understanding where the real power comes from. And I think it's a grassroots collection. You start with young people, because with the youth, it's always a lot of energy. We're talking about how do we control our teenagers. It's not about controlling them. It's just about giving them the right thing to fight for, because they got that energy. So what we we do is give them something collective to fight for, to create that hope. And I think as we do that, we create unison, we create unity, we create a common goal where we create hope for people to go through there. Sometimes you talk about it, it sounds like a utopian society, a kumbaya moment. How can this happen? But we've seen it happen too many times in our community. I think what happened is we've been pacified by the materialistic things of this world. And until all of us, and that's myself included, become comfortable enough to release some of these materialistic goods that we have, are willing to sacrifice some blood, sweat, and tears, and even our life. Until we get to that point, Willie Lynch will continue to have a hold. But as we all decide, hey, you know what, I'm in this no matter what, that's when you get back to the civil rights movements, when they say, you know what, it's old Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. When you have too many comfortabilities, it's hard to say give me death, because you kind of, and that's all of us. We get used to riding on those comfortabilities. When all of us decide that enough is enough, that's when it happens. And I think one of the things, Brother Islam, is what happened is when we started to have so many of our people get into middle class positions, we started to forget about some of those things that we felt.
Sure.
And so as we all collectively get back to that, but that's the question, we talk about white people and white privilege. Will they be willing to give up their white privilege? Well, some of the black people who's had a chance to accumulate some things, are they willing to give up those things? Because if not, they're hypocrites.
And I also say, and first of all, definitely, Brother Muhammad, I definitely think that when I talk about building the mentorship, no, it's no one program. It's a concept that we all have to embrace, and maybe many of us can kind of embrace it, but we got to get to a critical mass if we're going to make change. And so I don't care how we get there, as long as we get there. And we're not going to get to a critical mass unless we're working together. So there's organizations right now that are doing mentorship, but they're not working together. So if we can pull together and get critical mass, that's when we can begin to affect change.
It's power in numbers.
Exactly. So we have to be able to do that. And I also think that when it comes down to and I've written extensively on this here issue about the assimilation. And I'm not really trying to damn us. I'm just trying to unpack some of the problems so that we can see them as clear as possible. And even in your studies, you're an exception, because you're not designed. It's not designed for you to inherit 25 years of formal study. That you really are studying systems and people that are not you, and for you not to be affected by it. You come away out of that, what are you going to do? You're going to first automatically line yourself up with those, not your people. Mm-hmm. You replacing some of the systems, you coming in, and they swapping out white races for a black person that's assimilating. So, and you only got that position because the people before you fought for it, thinking that you would come in and have the right mindset to help change that system from within. But the problem is, what are you working with that's going to allow you to change the system from within? What have you been taught? What have you learned in that 25 years of formal education? You have learned more white supremacy and more black inferiority than you could ever realize. So the smart ones amongst us never drank the Kool-Aid. They never drank the Kool-Aid. They sipped it.
Spit it out.
Yeah, they sipped it, but they wasn't gobbling it down because it wasn't sweet to them. So they went along, and so those who now ended up and had the degrees and it was accepted by mainstream society, but they still had that same revolution spirit for their people and their love for these people. So they get sidetracked for a minute. Families sidetracked them, and life was sidetracked. But you ought to come back and you say, you know what? Again, you go back to those two important dates: your birthday and the date you realize why you was born.
We have a caller. Caller, you have a question or comment?
Yes, I have a comment, and I'm enjoying this show, and I'm glad you're going to be on. Is it daily?
No, Mondays.
Not yet, sister.
No. Don't put that in. Please don't put that in the universe yet. Mondays and Fridays.
Well, you're reaching a lot of people. Whether you Friday, I look forward to Friday.
Thank you.
I really do.
Thank you.
Because I love this brother who's come to Milwaukee, And that area that he's in on Capitol and King Drive, or, you know, that's an area for you. I've often said, if they could do a pilot and just make that an area that was thriving, where people who lived in the area, worked in the area, they go to school in the area, they learn in that area, because a lot of those people in that area were stakeholders, and they've been driven out. You know, they've been driven out because nobody showed them a way to live there and can stay there, maintain their living, you know, maintain them homes, maintain businesses coming over there, and you know, paying their dues just to be in the area, because that's a very good area, and it always has been. So I'm looking forward to all the things that's coming along, you know, for that area, because I live over there.
Oh, well, thank you.
I go to church over there. I shop over there, and I don't want to be driven away, you know.
Well,
I want to get with the people who are in there with the businesses, and we keep that area vital for the people.
One of the things that thank you so much for your call. One of the things that I started listening and talking to a number of different people, and I always got the impact when a school closed, the historical impact when a school closes. You know, you went to Green Bay, that's your school. And there are thousands and thousands of children that, you know, claim a history to that school.
To a building and neighborhood.
Exactly, to a neighborhood school.
And it's funny now, a year later, how it's really entrenched in you. When I first, you be like, what's the name? What's that green? What's that?
Oh, yeah.
But now you like, hey, Green Bay.
Yeah, no, I got it from the beginning. I got that part because I've been in the business, the school business, for a minute. And I get the value of, because, you know, I've seen in a number of different cities, I've seen the proposing of school closings and the chaos that it creates. So I was like familiar with that aspect with it. But what I wasn't familiar with or did not understand truly until I started listening to people is the impact that the building, the asset, the campus had on the community. So when they mothballed the education component, they mothballed the actual physical component. And Green Bay had, going back in the day, was a ice skating rink, but after that became a tennis court, basketball courts, and a baseball.
Yeah, and not only that, that's when we had summer programs.
Right.
So in the summertime, they opened it up for the little recreation
Right.
department.
Exactly.
You could see that had the playground.
So when it closed, all of that went. So what we're doing now at Universal, we're trying to restore all of those things. And I got some very good news just recently that we're moving closer and closer to restoring those physical assets, those amenities, and turn that back over to the community, and working with brother like Rick Muhammad, who lives in that neighborhood, and the sister. I would definitely love to meet you as well, and just come to the school and leave your name and number, and I'll reach out to you and meet you at the school, and we could talk about what we can do. The goal is to turn that school back over to the community.
And not just Green Bay. Actually, and I'm so glad you called in, because what you described that is happening at Universal Green Bay is actually happening at all of our campus. So at Universal Green Bay, Universal Webster, and in the fall it'll be Universal Lee, 9th and Meineke, is the Universal Plan. It's actually coming into a neighborhood, opening a school, developing and doing things in the neighborhood around the school, making it a neighborhood school, investing in the community, investing in businesses, investing in real estate, investing in the community and in the people in the neighborhood. And so we definitely need the people who live there, work there, have been there, to actually be a part of it, because that's what's important, that the school be the hub for the community. And you can't just close it down, like Rahim said, and expect it not to have an impact on the community and the neighborhood. So they're open. We're not going anywhere. Lee is opening in the fall. We're registering for all 3 campuses now. So we go to uacb.org. Lee, we are really, really excited to get that campus on 9th and Meineke. That is just around the corner from North Division High School. We are working on it now, Rahim, right?
Yeah, no question. We hired our principal just recently, and some of the staff is working. We get ready to do a number of outreach in the community.
Yep. Actually, we're meeting there this Saturday with some of the neighborhood people.
So tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow.
So it's on. It's on. I mean, again, I am honored and excited about restoring some of the rich history of Milwaukee, and back that for whatever reason was taken away.
Well, if a Green Bay could produce a Ramell Smith, just think how many more.
Let me just brag on my grandmama, because out of that house on 7th and Melvina, we got 3 doctors that come out of that house. I'm not the only one. So you know.
No, that's awesome.
And I don't even think it's just the degrees. I say that just because we laugh about that.
Sure.
But all my cousins, we grew up like siblings because it was all of us in there. You know. So not only did they go to college though and graduate, become productive citizens, they're good people. So most of the time when you think about, like, on the news, we talk about the media. They say, you know, I tell people where I grew up. Oh, you grew up over there. I was like, no, it's good people over there. I said, G from G Clipper grew up right across the street. His brother Corey. I mean, it's just some good people over there that where we was at. So it's like, for you talk about building that up, it makes me smile, because I remember when Green Bay closed, I was sad. It hurt me, because you also know what comes with the closing. So when you talk about not only opening up the Green Bays, but the Lees and the other ones, it gives that hope that, you know, we had talked about before, where we say, you know, Brother Muhammad said, how do we get rid of the Willie Lynch? Well, it starts with our babies. We got to reprogram this, the cognitive restructuring their mind before they get beat up, is to let them know that they are kings, that they are good. And I got to brag on my cousin Muhib, because Muhib is my cousin. So with his poem and his play, you know, from kings to thugs to presidents, that's the evolution. And what we're doing is we're in that presidential cycle, and we're letting our children know, hey, listen, this is who we really are. I like a thug mentality for a sense, because it's a warrior, but it's just the thwarted sense of a warrior.
Well, see,
so now what we got to do is put the positive aspect on it.
Because, you know, women talk about, you know, wanting a corporate thug.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no.
Raheem didn't know that. Yeah. Raheem, like, that's too much information. That's too much information.
Let me tell you, I would like everybody to go to Andre Lee Ellis.
Andre Lee Ellis, or your page.
Mm-hmm. Or my page. Okay, cool. My page.
On where?
I don't know.
Facebook.
Facebook. Okay, you tell them. But there's a picture. I mean, if this picture doesn't reflect who we are and the future of us, there's a picture of every bit of, it looks like about 50 young boys in red suits and white shirts and ties. They're not the thugged out, tattooed, pants dropping, no speaking. I mean, if we can capture this group of young men, take them from being young men to men, and keeping them together in some way in a social setting, we could change these social conditions overnight. Overnight.
I agree.
And so they are prime candidates to become good husbands and good earners, good providers and good fathers. But statistics show that we're going to lose a significant amount of them. Mm-hmm. So that's why the mentorship piece is really critical at scale, the critical mass, so we can capture as many of these young men as possible to keep them on track. They don't have to be angels, because none of us were angels, but they got to avoid, I call the mistake, the irreversible mistake, the mistake that you can't reverse on. Mm-hmm. And I look at these programs where these young boys are being killed. Once they're buried, it's over. You can't come back from that. And usually the persons or persons that are involved in that violence can't come back either. It's over. And so if you can avoid those kind of mistakes, we might have a shot at actually changing some things. And so that's where it's going to take organization. We just can't do kind of a casual, organic. We got to be purposeful in order for us to change these conditions.
Okay, we got a lot to do. Went fast today, didn't it? We got 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we need to talk about our. Tony Cash is our ride or die. He be there when we get there. He's already there with us, and he is doing something this weekend tomorrow. Called.
We didn't get Tony an interview anyway, because you know what?
What?
Tony seen everything we're doing.
He knows everything.
And he has an opportunity to sit there and just watch
and soak
listen,
it all up.
and listen. And he's a very talented and smart brother.
He is.
So maybe one day, Tony, we can talk about say what's been happening the last year and a half.
Like,
or something.
is your last name really Cash?
But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So he and his partner are going to talk about what's coming up tomorrow, and also something that I think they talked about before with Mondays in the barbershops.
Yeah, real quick to tie in with what Brother Rahim was saying about bringing the community together and reaching these young men at an early age. My partner Dame Smith came up with the idea of Barbershop Mondays, where we get barbers to volunteer on a Monday on their day off to give free haircuts to the young black boys in the neighborhood. And while they're getting these haircuts, we do the barbershop philosophy with them. When we go get a haircut, that's where some of the most phenomenal conversations take place. So we give them a little taste of that. We talk about life, what they're going through, and we actually listen to them and get their perspective on life. And Dan, you can speak a little bit more on that real quick.
The good thing is that it's a multi-generational thing. So we have brothers. This week we had a brother that was 53 all the way down to 12 years old. So it's a multi-generational thing. That's old, man. Well, to a 12-year-old it is. You know what I mean?
Like the older people, like Miss Tosha, Miss Davis in there.
Yeah. So to a young man, that was a great thing to see these folks.
I was joking with you.
Yeah. To see these folks get together and see what their commonalities are. So come, you'll see it on social media and whatnot. Come mess with us, man. Every Monday, 3 to 6 at different locations. We'll be in the Amani neighborhood and the Harambe neighborhoods right now, but we're trying to expand this, throughout the whole city.
Yeah, and it's not too many circles that we don't run in. We do the community thing, and we also into music too. So this weekend, MKE Unplugged, we're having a live situation where it's a live band and artists are performing original music. Performing original music is very vital for artistry. People give you a part of their lives. And at 228 South 1st Street, doors open at 8 o'clock. Show starts promptly at 9. They say we can't ever start anything on time, but starts promptly at 9. Live music, original artists performing original music, MKE Unplugged. You can check us out on Facebook too. Just type in MKE Unplugged, check out the videos and some of the artists that's performing.
Well, you all know that I would be remiss if I did not tell you that you have to check out Rahim's column this week, Message to the Black Community. In Milwaukee, there's a special reason why I want you to check it out, because the column this week is specifically tailored for Milwaukee. It is talking about we must take one step at a time. I'm going to ask you to go pick up the Milwaukee Courier. You can pick up the Milwaukee Community Journal because we're in there too, but I'm going to ask you to pick up the Milwaukee Courier. Go to Milwaukee Courier online. Also going to tell you that in the very near future, you will also be able to go to universallyspeaking.media and get all of Rahim's columns around the country and radio shows. But I want you to definitely go pick up this week's column. We're talking about Milwaukee, what we're going to be doing here with MCOL. You've heard us talk about that. That is Milwaukee Community of Leaders. You've heard him talk about Philadelphia Community of Leaders. Well, Milwaukee, it's our time. The time is now. We're not waiting anymore. We're about to get this thing started and fired up, and I think we're ready to go.
And I just want to close also. I just want to, I wouldn't even be doing this if it wasn't for someone seeing something in me and in Milwaukee. And that's Gerald Jones. Mr. Jones embraced me, actually pushed me, and has continued to push me. And it's been fun. It's been absolutely exciting. We've been meeting with a whole bunch of people. And the biggest compliment I got when he told someone is if you don't see me and you see Rahim, you see me. So, Mr. Jones, I will never, ever, ever forget that. That is absolutely, I will never let you down. So thank you so much for believing in me and giving me the opportunity to do what I think is my life's mission.
So until next week, I want to thank our guests. Damon, you know you're always welcome. Thank you.
Them Smith
boys.
boys.
The Smith boys. And Ramell, now, you know, I knew that once y'all got warmed up, it was going to be a seat here for you. And you definitely got to come back because I know y'all just got started. And I don't want to forget that we will be going back to our interview with Mr. Kenny Gamble because we only got started with part 1. And we've got about 5 or 6 more parts to finish up with that. So until next Friday, same place, same station, same time. Peace, Milwaukee.